Hey guys, how's everybody doing? It's Fernando here today. I got another video for you guys today. Today we're going to talk about the Game Awards, the Game of the Year, and our good friend DSP Gaming and his expert opinion on the gaming industry. So today we're going to discuss about how his prediction was before the Game Awards and his coping method after the Game Awards. So before the when Baldur's Gate released, but this was before Starfield released, he predicted that everybody would forget about Baldur's Gate 3 because it was getting so much praise at the time. This was in about August. August 3rd, I think, is when Baldur's Gate 3 came out on PC. And then this was before September, so this was before the release of Starfield. And he was so enamored that he thought that Starfield was going to overtake Baldur's Gate 3, blah, blah, blah. And his reason for it's kind of ridiculous. But let me have him talk about it. Just before I start, though, I'd like to give thanks to Duty Streams. He covers DSP a lot, like quite a bit. I could not watch what Duty watches because he posts on him daily, and for him to be able to do that, he'd have to watch DSP like pretty much all the time. I can only stomach so much of this guy before I get tired of his ass. So I thank him for the clip, and I'll put his description in the channel. And this is his channel right here. As you can see, he has a lot of DSP, a lot of that snort going on. So just give him a watch and give him a subscribe. So anyway, let's get to the video. Let's see what this guy has to say.
I guess this is a good thing. Here's the thing, though. All right, this is what a lot of people still don't understand. Right
And for paraphrasing, just for context, this was around August, between August and September, after the release of Baldur's Gate 3, before the release of Starfield.
now, Baldur's Gate 3 is all the rage, and it's all the rage for good reason. Everyone who's playing it on PC is saying it's one of the best RPGs ever made. Yada yada. However, it's a PC-centric RPG. So when you look at Baldur's Gate 3, you have to judge it in the same vein as games like Divinity, right? Or other similar titles. Baldur's Gate 3 is popular right now, but once Starfield hits, you're likely not going to hear anything about Baldur's Gate ever again. I'm sorry, but that's just the way of things. The console centric games in this generation get all the press, get all the media attention, and get all the hype. Baldur's Gate 3, I'm glad got the coverage that it did and that everyone has talked about it. I'm happy for that, and I'm glad that it sold like hotcakes on PC and it was one of the highest played games, concurrent players, and all of that. But I hate to say it, these PC centric RPGs do not get the traction of mainstream console RPGs. Even if they're better, they don't get the traction.
Now, let me point out the flaw in his logic. He's saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is getting hype, but it'll be forgotten because it's PC game. It's not just a PC game. Divinity 2 was also just not a PC game. It came out on consoles too. What does that have to do anything with it? It has nothing to do with it. The games that come out on PC are on console and vice versa. 90% of the games on console also come out on PC at some point. The ones that don't are the exclusives, and even those come out later on. Like if you see all the PlayStation games coming out on PC recently, Spider-Man, what's the one with the game with the girl? I forgot the name. All the PlayStation games that came out that are coming out on PC. You could catch a bunch of PC games, PlayStation games now on PC. I bet your bottom dollar that Spider-Man 2 will come out on PC. Give it another year. They're gonna stagger their releases by a year or two because Sony wants you to double dip. They expect you to buy the game on PlayStation, and then in a year or two, when there's good graphic cards and stuff like that, they'll release it again full price, and they'll want you to buy it again for PC so you can experience higher frame rates and better graphics on that. So they're released anyway. They're the PC games are console games. It doesn't matter. They're still the same game. They play exactly the same. All you have to do is hook up a controller to PC. You don't have to play mouse and keyboard if you don't want to. Just hook up an Xbox, a PlayStation controller, any controller, and you can play the game just as like you would on console. And the only benefit of a PC is, of course, is that you can switch out parts so that you get better graphics and better resolution and better frame rate, but it's still basically the same game. So I don't understand why he's saying, "Oh, this game, Baldur's Gate, came out on PC, so it's gonna be forgotten in about a month because Starfield's coming out and that's on console." Starfield came out on both PC and console at the same time. So what does that have to do with anything? His logic makes no sense. Let's let him continue to explain himself.
Remember when Divinity Original Sin 2 came out and every PC player said, "Oh my god, it's the best game ever." Did it even get seriously considered for Game of the Year by anyone? outside of the PC community who was talking about it. And by the way, that game absolutely got ported to consoles. Did you hear hype for it? Did you hear buzz about it? And again, there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I'm saying? And again, and already you got idiots in the chat. Oh, you see, he's already giving props to Starfield. I didn't say anything good about Starfield at all. I have not praised.
You just said that if Starfield came out, it's gonna have Baldur's Gate 3 is gonna be forgotten. That is praise, sir. You don't understand what you're saying? Do you not listen to what you're saying? Do you don't know what comes out of your mouth? By saying that Starfield coming out is gonna make all other games get forgotten, including Baldur's Gate 3, which hello, it was Game of the Year. That's giving Starfield praise before it even releases. So this just shows that you're just talking out of your ass.
Starfield. I'm telling you like it is. Console games that go mainstream get more media attention, get more press, get more publicity, and get more buzz, and get talked about, and even get considered for Game of the Year way more than PC-centric games.
The reason why he's saying that is because he's not a PC gamer. He does not own a PC. He only owns a computer to do his editing and stuff like that. It's probably a low-powered PC, like that could barely handle editing. So the fact that he's talking out of his ass saying that PC games don't get attention is a bunch of nonsense. First of all, there is real no line between PC and console outside of the hardware. You know, the graphics cards, the resolutions, the screens, and stuff like that. A console is just basically a console is just a cheaper PC. It might be a little more underpowered than the PC, but it's able to get enough juice in there so you can produce good quality graphics. But a good gaming PC will always top a console. But that's not the issue. We're not talking about hardware. We're talking about the games. The games come out on both systems. They come out on PC. They come out on Xbox. They come out on Switch. They come out on PlayStation 5. They'll run differently. They'll perform differently depending on what hardware you have. Yeah, Switch. Baldur's Gate 3 ain't playing on Switch. I'll tell you that. But it'll run fine on a PlayStation 5. It'll run even better on a PC. So by you saying, okay, it's not gonna get much attention because it came out on PC first, that's bullshit. If a game is good, regardless of where it came out of. So I don't know why you're differentiating. Well, I do know why you're differentiating because you're not a PC gamer. You don't understand, and that's just a pig-headed way of looking at things. Games are games, no matter where they come out of. And if it's a great game, it should be lauded and it should be applauded. It doesn't matter what system it comes out on.
So you have to stop with the bullshit and understand the way of reality. It doesn't matter if you live in your PC bubble and all you do is play PC games, so that's all you hear about. That's not reality. Baldur's Gate 3.
Neither is your reality. You live in a console bubble, apparently, but you don't see it, obviously, because you don't see your flaws. Because DSP always does everything right. He does nothing wrong.
Could literally be the best game of the decade, and it's still not going to get as much attention as a game like Starfield. Okay? You have to understand this. All right? So when I hear things like, oh, it was unfair that Xbox wasn't getting Baldur's Gate 3, but PlayStation is, you have to understand something. In 1 week's time, no one will be talking about Baldur's Gate 3 in the mainstream gaming media. It will as if the game never existed. Because all you're going to hear is Starfield, 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 and then Lies of P, Mortal Kombat, and then when October hits, all those new releases that are consoles. You're not going to hear Baldur's Gate 3 whispered once. You may hear it at the end of the year as a Game of the Year contender, and it will not win Game of the Year. It's time to face the facts. This is how it is now, all right?
Let me remind you that he has not played Baldur's Gate 3. And to be fair, I haven't either. But I'm not just going to dismiss the game as just a PC game and not consider it a Game of the Year just because it's a PC game. It's a game, and I've heard all the chatter, and I've heard all the good reviews about it. So it makes me want to try it more. I will probably end up getting Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if I'll get on PC or on PS5 or on Xbox. I'm still waiting to see. But I will try Baldur's Gate 3. I wasn't going to play it at first because I'm not really a D&D player. I don't really understand the lore too much. But I keep hearing the hype over this game that it's so good. It's so good. Now it's Game of the Year. So that only intrigues me more to try it. So I'm going to try it eventually. Just like same with Alan Wake 2. I wasn't interested in Alan Wake 2 at first, but then I saw it won Best Narrative, Best Direction. I heard all this good stuff about it. I heard that it's got like gameplay that you've never played before that's totally unique to that game. That also makes me interested in Alan Wake 2, where I wasn't interested in it before. Because I didn't really like the first Alan Wake. But now Alan Wake 2 came out and I'm hearing all this buzz and chatter. I might not like either game still. They still might not be my cup of tea, but I'm still going to try them. And just because I don't like them don't mean that they're not great games. They probably are great games. They just not might be my style, but I'll still give them a shot, and I really want to. Both games I'm going to try eventually. Nope.
PC games do not get the hype anymore. I'm sorry. You can fool yourself as much as you would like into thinking one way or the other, but I'm telling you like it is, they don't get the attention anymore. They just don't. If it were a game that were mainstream across all platforms and getting all the hype and getting all the media attention and getting all that, absolutely. But it's like I said a few months ago. This year, or not a few months ago, a few weeks ago. This year is a weird year. All right, and here's why. Because this year, everyone is playing their specific RPG that they love and claiming it's Game of the Year. This started with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my God, Tears of the Kingdom, so much better than Breath of the Wild. It's innovative, it's amazing, it's gonna get Game of the Year. And then Diablo 4. Oh my God, Diablo 4. It looks so good. It plays like old school Diablo. It's so good. It's a return to form. Diablo 4 is definitely getting Game of the Year. And then Final Fantasy 16. Oh my God. Final Fantasy 16, finally appealing to the masses. They dumbed it down with an awesome combat engine now that plays like Devil May Cry. The graphics, ooh, the story, ooh, the adult story. There's swearing and sex and blood and gore. It's like Game of Thrones plus Final Fantasy. It's everything we ever wanted. Final Fantasy 16, the best game ever, Game of the Year. And then Baldur's Gate 3.
See how in the last video I said how he was all weirded out about sex and stuff. It just shows that he's weirded out by that in gaming. I don't know why. It's just a part of life. So if you see it on TV, if you see it in gaming, why are you weirded out? I would hope that you see it in real life. I mean, you are a 41-year-old. You are married. I would hope you're having relations with your wife, and if you're not, that's why the reason why you're weirded out. Please tell me that this man is actually pleasing his wife and not just having her cook and clean and work while he's sitting around playing video games all day. Please.
It came out. Do you understand that none of these games are going to... none of them are a shoo-in for Game of the Year. They can't be. You understand that, right? You get it. And it's just insane because each little isolated community feels like their game is a shoo-in for Game of the Year. Wrong. Wrong. That's not how it works anymore. It's about the money. It's about...
When did that ever work? When did one small community for each game vote for their Game of the Year and that game was Game of the Year? It never works that way. Not the communities don't agree. What are you talking about, DSP? What? Of course, the Baldur's Gate community ain't gonna vote for Diablo 4, and Diablo 4 ain't gonna vote for Baldur's Gate, and any other, like, Final Fantasy ain't gonna vote for Baldur's Gate or something like that. Yeah, their communities are not gonna vote because they're fans of the game. And most of them are fanboys. They're diehards. They're not. But we're not talking about the communities. We're talking about the gaming community as a whole. In general, what do we all think is the best game of the year? I don't know why you're just focusing on little communities. Maybe because you're only focused on your own little community, because that's your own little safe bubble that you like to concentrate on. And you don't like to look outside at anybody else because that's oh no, they bully me out there. They talk shit about me out there. I'm just going to stay with my little group of people here, and we're just going to talk about what I like to talk about, like I like to think, and not let any more discussion, because that's the way he is. Even on his chat, he doesn't let people talk about other stuff. If they're not talking about him or his game, he gets upset. And I've never seen anybody run the chat like DSP runs his chat. It is really like freaking, I don't know, like martial law. Like it's his way or the highway. His streams, his chat, I guess, but that's not really a good way to grow your community if you don't let them talk to each other. Some people are just there to hang out, and if, like, for example, let's say DSP, shocker, isn't interesting, or is boring, or is just shit-talking a game all the time, when does that ever happen? Then maybe they want to talk amongst each other and, have a nice conversation outside of you because you're boring or toxic. You never think about these things. You never do because you're pig-headed, and you're an idiot. And you think that you're the best and you do everything good, and DSP does nothing wrong.
About the publicity, it's about the games media. That's really what gets games propelled into consideration for like a Game of the Year contention.
No, the fact that a game releases on all platforms is not the only consideration for Game of the Year. It's the quality, it's the story, it's the graphics, it's how it appealed to everybody. That's how it is to everybody, not just you. Just because you don't like playing PC games does not mean that it's instantly disqualified and that you shouldn't be talking about it and that it's not going to be considered Game of the Year or that it is Game of the Year. I haven't played it, but I'll still give it props for Game of the Year because obviously an overwhelming number of gamers and fans, voted for it. I'm not just talking about the Game Awards. It won Player's Voice. That's 100% vote by the players, by gamers. And that is no media, no journalists are involved in that. So it won Player's Voice of the Year for Game of the Year, plus winning Game of the Year in general. Because even with the journalists and gaming journalists, I know it's not trustworthy. It's full of money. It's full of corruption. It's full of publishers getting in there, giving money away so that the influence of the opinions of other people. I know that. I'm not naive to it. But still, a lot of people came to the same consensus that Baldur's Gate 3 is Game of the Year. And I respect that. I don't know why you're having such trouble with it. Let's jump to the next video. Let's just cut him off there and go to the next video. This is after the Game Awards. This is him now coping with the fact that his prediction was 100% wrong. He was way off base, and Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year. Let's hear how he copes.
Alrighty, so today is Friday, the 8th of December, 2023. I'm Darkside Phil. I welcome you here to the Level 1 podcast, and today, of course, will be a hefty show. Because today...
And he does these daily where he just goes, talks about whatever he wants to talk about for like an hour and a half before he starts even gaming. Like these streams are like 5 to 6 hours long, and like 2 of them are just him talking about whatever irks him that day. Whether it be the Game Awards, which I'm sure there's going to be like a lot of salt going into this podcast because his games didn't win Game of the Year, or his predictions were totally off base, or whatever bothered him that day, or whatever problems he has at home, or whatever money issues he has, mostly money issues that he has within that week. But let's go ahead and let him talk about his coping of how the Game Awards were totally not how he expected them to go.
Today is the Game Awards decompression show. Now, as you know, I've told you guys this every single year. The Game Awards are not official. The Game Awards do not represent anything official whatsoever. Just because a game won or lost or ranked but didn't win at the Game Awards doesn't mean a game is good or bad. They have absolutely no bearing on anything. In fact, the Game Awards are actually voted on majority by journalists, and we all know that games journalists are actually not in line with what most gamers want. Therefore, we actually have absolutely nothing to talk about today. So that is it for the podcast, and I'll see you all tomorrow.
He rage quit his own podcast. Oh my god. He's coming back, but before he comes back, oh my god. Okay, so yes, the Game Awards really at the end of the day doesn't mean anything. He's right about that one. Same thing with the Grammys, same thing with the Tony, same thing with the Oscars. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. It's just representation. It's just a show to promote movies or plays or music or anything. It's the Game Awards is the same thing. It's just a presentation, but it's something nice that we look forward to, like what's it called, to celebrate the industry. Like in this case, it's the game industry. It's their own little show to celebrate it. So while it doesn't hold major importance, it's still something that's worth watching and worth going through and applauding at the end of the day. And yes, like he said, 90% of the vote is the publishers. Not the publishers, I'm sorry, gaming journalists and stuff. And we all know that gaming journalists aren't the most trustworthy people. Like just watching scores from games that really weren't that good get 9s and 10s and all that stuff. Yeah, you could tell that something's a little off. But still, it does represent like what the gamers do like, because they can't go that far off base if they want to keep some sort of credibility. So like the games that were nominated this year: Baldur's Gate 3, excellent game, deserved Game of the Year. Spider-Man 2, excellent game, deserved Game of the Year. What else was there? Well, Super Mario Wonder, excellent game, deserved Game of the Year. Legend of Zelda, excellent game. Alan Wake, excellent game. What was the sixth one? There's 5, and there's one I'm forgetting, but yeah, all the games that were nominated, any of those games could have really won Game of the Year. You could have made an argument for any one, but the top 3 that I was always hearing the most chatter about was Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, and Legend of Zelda, and actually Alan Wake 2. Actually, those were the main 4. I kind of knew Spider-Man 2 wasn't going to win because I think Spider-Man 2 is a little too mainstream, and it was a little too safe of a sequel. Doesn't mean it's a bad game, but it was a little too safe of a sequel. Tears of the Kingdom I thought was actually 1B. I actually thought most of the year I thought it was going to win. Then Alan Wake came out, and I heard so much chatter about Alan Wake, how this is such an original game, how it has such good gameplay that you've never experienced before. Excuse me. And I'm like, oh crap, maybe Alan Wake's gonna sneak in there and take it. But then I kept since it came out all through the year, the same like consistent chatter for Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 this, Baldur's Gate 3 that. It's really good. It's really made for the gamers. It has no this is important thing. It has no microtransactions. It doesn't have any of this bullshit. You play it, the story's there, the game's all there. You get to enjoy it. It's a great game. It has great mechanics. All year since its release, that's all I heard. So I was like, it's consistent. So that's why, like, you know what? It's probably gonna be Baldur's Gate 3 or Tears of the Kingdom. And then when Alan Wake came out, I was like, oh, maybe it's Alan Wake. But at the end of the day, Baldur's Gate 3 won, deservedly so. But any of those games could have really, honestly, you could have made an argument and they could have won. It's been that good of a year. 2023 has been a very good gaming year. A lot of good games came out. And some of the games weren't even... Oh, you know what? Resident Evil 4. I'm sorry, that was the sixth game. Resident Evil 4. Also a great game. You could make also an argument for Game of the Year. All those games deservedly so. It was the only gaming year I can remember where you can make an argument for any of the games that got nominated to win Game of the Year, to be honest with you. So 2023, awesome gaming year. So yeah, it was a difficult year for people to pick, but at the end of the day, consensus showed that Baldur's Gate 3 was Game of the Year. And I will try to play it one day to see for myself, but I don't disagree with people because the chatter has been consistent all year about Baldur's Gate 3, and I can't wait to try it. And I'm sure it's going to be a great game.
Well, except that I say this every year and no one listens to me, and everyone still judges the Game Awards as if it has some true bearing on the goodness of games, and they actually will rank their games based on what the Game Awards said won or lost. So I end up having to talk about it every year.
Wait, what? Ranking based on... No, nobody ranks their gaming list by the Game Awards. It's a reference, but it's not like, for example, since I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, I can't call Baldur's Gate 3 my game of the year because I haven't played it until I play it. Right now, I would have to say it's Spider-Man 2 for me because I played Spider-Man 2. I played Spider-Man 2. I played Mario Wonder. I played Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 4 Remake. What was the other game? There's a fourth game I played in there. Wonder, yeah, Zelda. And for the longest time, I thought it was gonna be Zelda. And then I played Spider-Man 2, and like, I like Spider-Man 2 a little better. So that would be my game. If you had to pin me down right now, I'd have to say Spider-Man 2 is my game of the year because that's what I played. But had I played Baldur's Gate 3 since the very beginning and experienced that game, maybe my opinion would change. And that's everybody's opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. Even you can have your opinion. You could say whatever your game. I don't know what your game of the year is, but whatever your game of the year, that's fine. That's your opinion. But nobody's saying that we're ranking our opinions based on the Game Awards. Who's doing that? No one's doing that. Maybe DSP is.
I really wish that people would not give it as much weight or merit because, quite frankly, I feel like a lot of great games get overlooked and a lot of bad games get overhyped because the Game Awards are focused mostly on games journalism, which I completely disagree with. We've all been talking...
No, I'll give them that. When The Last of Us 2 was Game of the Year, that was a load of garbage. That game should not have been even nominated. Just because how crappy the story is. Yeah, the game was fundamentally, on a mechanical level, great. Great graphics. The gameplay was awesome. But the story was such shit. I don't know how it won Game of the Year. Even nominated, I don't know how it got nominated. Just because of the story. I'm not saying the game's not good, like I said. And I don't know how they're gonna do a remake of it because they're not changing the story. The gameplay, yeah, they'll add stuff to it, which is great. And good thing that it's only $10 for anybody who owns the game already. Because I wouldn't pay a full price for this again. No way. It's the same damn story. I'm not playing... I don't know if any of you guys... I ain't playing the story again for Last of Us 2. I'm not going through that slog again. So I don't mind doing the extra stuff for $10, but I'm not playing the main campaign again. No way.
Talking about how in the last 5+ years, there's been a big divide between common opinion of video games and what games journalists are saying about them. I mean, let's be honest. Most average gamers probably play more games than game journalists these days. So how could they have a valid opinion more qualified than ours, right?
Wait a minute. Hold on. They do what you do. They play games for a living. That's what their job is. How are you saying their opinions may differ because everybody has their own opinion like you do. And their opinions might be wrong like yours are. But that doesn't mean that they're any less credible than you are because you play games for a living just like they do. So I don't know where you're going with this because you're in the same boat, buddy.
Anyway, we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss the elephant in the room. Because, ladies and gentlemen, If you can believe it,
I can.
the biggest surprise shocker ever just happened at the Game Awards 2023. Are you ready for this? This is what everyone wants me to talk about. This is the burning topic that must be addressed right now before we get to anything else. Game of the Year was not given to Starfield. And that is an absolute atrocity. We all know that Starfield was definitively, without a doubt, without any kind of criticism or commentary possible, it was the indisputable best game of 2023, hands down. How could anyone possibly say something differently? And the fact that it didn't win Game of the Year just proves that it was complete sham. This is just a bunch of people who are trying to push agendas. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? We all know there's an Xbox tax out there. No matter what, if a game's exclusive to Xbox and not on PlayStation, it'll never win at the Game Awards, and that's just a bunch of baloney.
My ears hurt from listening to that nonsense, but he's kidding. Of course, he's trolling.
Of course, I'm being completely facetious with that.
Of course.
That's complete
Because you're a good liar. You're not that good of a liar.
bullshit, right? What's funny to me, all right, this year, is that, and I said this earlier this year, and I'll reiterate, and I'm basically going to address what people want me to address, but it's not intelligent people who want me to address this, sadly. Basically, this year was a year.
Now, just because they're your detractors and your critiques, why is it not intelligent people? All right, it's an honest critique. You said that Baldur's Gate 3 would not even be considered Game of the Year, and it won Game of the Year, hands down, by probably a good margin. Because, like I said, it won players' voice, and that's 100% voted on by the players. So you here sitting and saying that people of low intelligence or no intelligence, whatever you said it, are asking you for you to say, well, hey, what happened here? That's not people with low intelligence. These are actually, I would say these are pretty smart people because they're calling you out on your bullshit. So let's hear what your bullshit actually is, which ought to be very good.
When there were so many games that when they came out, everyone was just so sure that they were going to be Game of the Year this year. Are you ready to go through the list of games? You know, first we started off with Resident Evil 4 Remake. Oh my god, this game is so good. I can't believe that this game would not be Game of the Year. And then it was Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Wow, it blows away Breath of the Wild. It's so many innovations and so many new things. I can't believe this game
that was
be
weird.
Game of the Year. And then it was Final Fantasy 16. Oh my god, it's the best Final Fantasy ever. Amazing music, great visuals. It's a great story. I can't believe it. The best game of the year. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came out. Oh my god, it's the best RPG ever made. Fan service out the wazoo. They really put attention to detail. There's no way it can't be Game of the Year. And it just kept continuing all year, right?
I think the Comcast guy must have gotten into my internet for a second there. Anyway, yeah, it's basically what he's saying is 2023 was a great year for gaming. Yeah, every month a great game came out. And yeah, every time we thought about it as for Game of the Year. Resident Evil 4, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2. All those games, as they came out, even games that didn't get nominated. Mortal Kombat 1, I love Mortal Kombat 1. Unfortunately, Fires will never be considered for Game of the Year. And even the one before that, Street Fighter 6, I love Street Fighter 6. I even think Street Fighter 6 is just a twinge better than Mortal Kombat 1. Just because I love the mechanics in that game. It's like that Street Fighter 6 won Fighter of the Year, and that rightfully earned. But it's 1A and 1B for Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1. At least in my book, they are great games, and I enjoyed playing them both. So yeah, like he's saying, every month or at least it looked like a game came out, and it was a Game of the Year contender because that's the kind of year that we had for 2023. We had a great year of gaming. We should be ecstatic about that, and we probably won't have another year like this. I don't think 2024 will match. 2025 will be eclipsed by GTA 6. Even if the game is halfway as good as it looks, it'll still get a lot of chatter because that's just the way GTA is. Like, it's just gonna suck the air out of everything in 2025. So 2024, I don't know if it's gonna match. I don't see games of that caliber coming out, but then again, it's too early to tell. We'll see. But yeah, 2023 was an awesome year, and every game, like I said, every game that came out that was nominated for Game of the Year, you could have made an argument for Game of the Year for each game.
Right?
Excuse me.
And the funny part was, every time that this happened, I called it out. And I was like, You guys realize, because go back, you'll hear me saying, you guys realize not every major RPG and or release this year can be game of the year. But that's how everyone is acting. There's all these different pocketed fan groups who are all acting like no matter what, their game is going to get game of the year. And at that point, when all this was happening, because I specifically remember there was a particular podcast where I addressed it, I said, you have to understand something. There's absolutely no way all these games can win Game of the Year. In fact, I would bet a lot of these wouldn't even get nominated. Now, in that regard, I guess I was wrong, because if you actually look at the games that got Game of the Year nominations, it's pretty much every game that had a major fan base, except for a couple, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay?
No, it was pretty much every game, even the ones that weren't nominated, had a major fan base. Mortal Kombat 1 had a major fan base, it didn't get nominated. Street Fighter 6 had a major fan base, it didn't get nominated. What else? Even Starfield, even though it wasn't a great game, it still had a major fan base in the beginning. Then it dwindled off as we played more of the game. For me, Starfield, I do like Starfield. I still play it every once in a while. I kind of got tired of it a little bit because as I progressed and played through the game and went through different planets and stuff, it got very samey to me. Like the planets, the Precision Gems planets were pretty much the same layout. Like every interior was pretty much either a space station or an outpost or a mining colony, and they were all either there were only like 2 or 3 variations of each one, but that's basically what you were exploring into, and it was the same layout almost every time. So it got samey to me. Discovering all these planets pretty much had the same thing in them. They might have had different minerals or different wildlife or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the meat of the game is the action and going into these areas and taking out pirates or Ecliptic or Varun. It's pretty much just you're taking out human enemies. There's not a lot of variation. There are the Terramorphs, which are like the alien creatures, which are very interesting, but they're few and far between. The alien wildlife is really no threat. You just kill them for XP. And basically, it's just the factions or the pirates. That's it. And there's like 3 variations of the pirates. So it's 3 of the same thing. It's just different colors. So it got samey. I still play it every once in a while, but because I want to finish it, and it's got New Game Plus, and the New Game Plus is a very interesting part of that game. So I want to get to that part eventually. But I heard that for New Game Plus you lose a lot of stuff. It's a free experience, so I do want to get everything that I can, explore as much as I can, and then once I have everything and I'm okay with parting with it, then I'll move on to the New Game Plus. I still got to do the whole story too, which actually for Bethesda games the story is never the most interesting part. It's the lore, and one day I'll talk about the lore of Starfield and explain why the game failed. They really didn't. They have a great lore. The world that they built for this game is outstanding, but their focus on the story is all wrong. And one day I'll make a video about that. Maybe I'll explain what I mean. But I'm getting a little off topic. Let's go back to what we're talking about. Game of the Year and the Game Awards.
Okay. So, when we got to that point, I basically made a statement, and I was like, listen, you guys got to understand something. At that point, Baldur's Gate 3 was only on PC. There actually hadn't even been an announcement of when it was coming to console yet. And everyone on PC loved it. But I said, you got to understand something. There's a couple factors here. Number one, if it's only a PC game, that's an isolated audience. If it's
No,
not
it's not
available, there's going to be people who are not.
No, it's not. The PC gaming community has grown exponentially over the years. What are you talking about? You're talking out of your ass. It's not a small little dingy community. It's not only a handful of players that are playing on PC and everybody has either a PlayStation or an Xbox. No, PC has grown a lot and it is a big fan base that's in there now. So the fact that you're not in it doesn't give you the right to say that it's a small group.
Be able to play the game, that's going to be a hard sell for Game of the Year. You know, take
obviously not.
Years, a game like Divinity 2, right, which everyone absolutely praised and loved, but a lot of people never even talked about because it was PC only for the longest time until it finally got console ports. Right? I mean, that's a short.
No, the chatter that I heard about Divinity 2 is that it was really difficult to get into. That was the chatter I heard about Divinity 2. Not that it was a bad game. I don't think it was a bad game, but it was incredibly difficult to get into. Like you'd have to be really good at navigating the menus and the skill trees and all that stuff. It's really complex, and I think that's what turned off a lot of people on Divinity 2. So that's the chatter I heard. Not that it was a crappy game. Not that it was a PC only game. No, I don't know what the hell DSP is talking about. The game was just complicated, and some people were turned off by complicated games. That's pretty much it, and that's what Divinity 2 was.
Case of that from the past. Now, in addition to that, at that time, because we're talking around the summertime, there were still big releases on the horizon, like Starfield and Spider-Man 2 and a few others that people were eyeballing, and particularly, it was actually Starfield that we were eyeballing at that time. And we were like, well, if this game absolutely lives up to all of the promises that are made about this game, okay? Absolutely, this game could be Game of the Year shoo-in, right?
Wrong. How many games in modern gaming in these last couple of years have really generally, honestly lived up to their hype? How many games? I can't think of one game that's lived 100% up to their hype. Because they get overhyped either by the community, by the fan base, or by the developers or publishers themselves. Starfield is the next example of that. Starfield is a good game, but it got hyped, crazily hyped, by the community as game of the year, as game of the generation, blah blah blah. It wasn't. It was overhyped. It was put on a pedestal, and when the game finally came out, it got knocked off its pedestal because it wasn't as good as people made it out to be. It was good. Like I said, I'm a fan of Starfield. I like Starfield, but it's not a game of the year. It's not a great game. It's a good game. It's a 7 or an 8 at best, not a 10 out of 10. So that's the problem with overhyping games. You're gonna say, "Oh, this game's good." You're gonna be able to go 1,000 planets, and you're gonna be able to explore all these things. Look at all these aliens. First, I don't even think there are aliens in Starfield. I haven't gotten that far yet. Maybe there are, but who knows? And look at all this stuff going around. But at the end of the day, if your gameplay is not that great, if your gameplay loop is not like fun and you're not enjoying yourself, and you're seeing the same thing over and over, your game's not gonna be that good. And that's what happened to Starfield. This game just wasn't that great. The story wasn't that great. The world is fantastic. It has still tons of potential to be great. It's just not. It's not there at the moment. They might get there if they work hard and like work on the lore, more on the world and stuff like that. It could be, but right now, as it stands right now with the release, it's not Game of the Year, obviously, because it didn't even get nominated. Rightfully so that it didn't get nominated because they didn't deserve it. There were much of other games this year that came out that deserved the nomination, and we saw them. So I don't understand his argument here.
It's a make or break game for Bethesda. They've had a bunch of bad, disappointing outings right before this, correct? I mean, take a look at they had Redfall, which was absolutely terrible under Arcane Studios. They had Fallout 76, which was an atrocity at launch, and to this day it has an online player base, but nowhere near what they were originally wanting for the game because it flopped at launch.
Yeah, because Fallout 76, yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what they were thinking with that game. Like, making a empty world where only players existed was a terrible idea. And they regret that now because the game is better. I'll give it that. It's better. Just like Cyberpunk is better, but it took them years to get there. But the player base ain't going to come back. At least not. It hasn't, at least. So, yeah, like Bethesda has had a couple of crappy turnouts. Redfall was really bad. I tried that game and it was, oh my goodness. That game was just horrible to slog through. Just the first couple of levels. I didn't understand the lore. I didn't understand the enemies. I didn't understand what we were supposed to be doing there. And the AI was just brain dead. I could just walk up to everybody and pistol whip everybody and they die. Uh, it was just a ridiculously simple, ugly, and dumb game. So yeah, the Bethesda's not doing so hot right now. Starfield is better. I'll give it that. But it could have been so much better. And it does have the potential. And that's what it has. It has a lot of potential. But they have a lot of work ahead of them if they want to make it a better game.
Fallout 4 had a bunch of major criticisms, and the fact they just keep re-releasing Skyrim and not putting out anything new, this was the big one.
Hold up, wait. This guy has played Skyrim like 3 or 4 times on his channel. Why is he complaining about re-releasing Starfield since he's played each re-release of Starfield? No, I'm sorry, not Starfield. Skyrim. He has played every re-release of Skyrim. And I'm not talking about modded versions that might be interesting on PC, because remember, he's not a PC player. So he doesn't have the modded versions that be interesting. He's playing plain old vanilla Skyrim over and over and over again. He's played it at least 4 times on his channel, streamed it 4 times to milk people out of money. So it's rich coming from him that he's complaining about Bethesda releasing Skyrim over and over when he's played it over and over again. Vanilla Skyfield, not even modded Skyfield. For freaking, oh my goodness. Let's continue.
Everything on, and everyone was kind of, once we saw that presentation, do you remember? was it around Summer Games Fest, I want to say? They showed some stuff and people were like, all right, we're starting to feel more positive about this game, right? And basically, again, it was uncertain. But here's the thing. Starfield was going to be PC and Xbox, right? At launch. And with that media hype behind it and everything, you're like, wow. The common feeling was that it was kind of a wait and see. At that point, I told you, I thought for me all year, I was thinking Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, or Starfield. At that point, that was my thoughts. Those are going to be the big three that'll likely be contention.
He's lying. You just saw in the last video, he said that nobody was going to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 after Starfield release. Now he's saying, oh yeah, I was thinking it was going to be Starfield or Baldur's Gate 3. What? You never said that, buddy. Now you're lying out of your ass.
For Game of the Year. But knowing how journalists lean towards Nintendo, because I never thought that Breath of the Wild would have won, and it did, okay? And knowing how journalists go with height, and if Starfield was good, then he probably would have leaned right towards that. You know what I'm saying? I thought for sure.
First of all, he has a thing with Nintendo because he never liked Zelda. If anybody saw that, if anybody's seen that clip, there's a clip of him. It's a very popular clip where he's going through a thunderstorm, and you're supposed to take off your armor because, duh, metal is conductive to electricity, and if you get thunderstruck, you die. So this idiot didn't think about it. He didn't take off his armor. He just ran around the thunderstorm. He got shocked and he died, and he didn't know why he was dying. So he kept doing it over and over and over. And I don't know, eventually he did realize that he had to take off his armor to go through the thunderstorm. But it just took him several tries to get that thought through his head. It's just ridiculous. He has an aversion towards Nintendo. Zelda, more particularly. Not really Nintendo. It's more to Zelda. Breath of the Wild was a great game. Tears of the Kingdom was even better than that. So Breath of the Wild deserved Game of the Year. Though you could have made arguments for another game. It's still Breath of the Wild Game of the Year. And Tears of the Kingdom, you could have made an argument this year. But there was so much more competition this year than Breath of the Wild had that year that it won. It is what it is, man. It was just a great gaming year. 2023 was awesome.
Those would have gotten favor, okay? But here's what happened. Let's be honest. Starfield's not very good, right?
No
Starfield
shit.
Is a huge
That's what I just said.
I mean, I talked about it in the credits of the playthrough. I gave you my review of it. It's just incredibly underwhelming. Doesn't live up to any of the promises. Actually looks like more like a joke than anything else. Looks like a photocopy of previous games they've made, and how when you make a copy of a copy of a copy, it starts to lose its.
See, this is what I don't like about DSP. Instead of being objective, he's just gonna shit on the game. All right, the Starfield has its merits. It is a big world. It is. It does have interesting elements. It has an awesome lore. It's just that there's a bunch of repetition. There's a bunch of copy paste. That's true. That is one good argument against Starfield. It is a lot of copy paste areas and a lot of repetition and it's very samey. But it's not garbage. It's not a joke. It's a 7 out of 10. That's what it is. You didn't like it because you died a lot and people made fun of you because you were dying a lot. So that's why you ended up not liking it. And of course you weren't. I think you finished it at level 30. Dude, I'm level 60. I'm almost level 70 in that game and I haven't even gone through this whole story yet. So I don't know, you just went straight through the story, didn't probably do any of the side quests, just burned right through the story, and then, you were under-leveled, and that's probably where you were dying a lot. So that would explain why you struggled with the game. That's your fault for not playing the game properly.
It's focus, its sharpness. It looks more blurry and fuzzy and shitty, and that's exactly what Starfield looks like. When you made the same game 10 times, the 10th iteration isn't as good as the first 3. Everyone wants to go back and play the 3 classics. I don't want to play the 10th clone. And that's exactly what Starfield feels like. It lost its unique identity along the way of being an awesome Bethesda RPG and just feels like, oh, paint by numbers. And that's bad.
It's not that way.
So, because of that, all right, that completely changed the landscape of what possibly would have been considered Game of the Year. Honestly, I was shocked when Alan Wake 2 got nominated for Game of the Year. Personally, I loved Alan Wake 2. And I was very happy to see it get all the recognition it did last night at the Game Awards. That was really nice to see that game that normally a game like that would have been overlooked, but it got tons of recognition. I was like, wow, I'm shocked it got as much as it did. But then when it got nominated, I was like, could it possibly win? I don't think so. I didn't ever really felt like it could. Spider-Man 2, I never thought was going to win. Honestly, like I would have had my jaw dislocate and jump out of my skin and land on the floor if that won, because journalists just aren't about the superhero games. They're just not. You know.
I agree and I disagree. Spider-Man 2 deserved to be nominated. It is a great game. I do enjoy it. It's just I don't. It was too safe of a sequel for me, and I don't think it was good compared to the other games around there. I didn't think it had a chance to win Game of the Year. Not because it's not a great game. It is a great game and deserved its nomination. It's just it had tough competition ahead of them. Like it was just like Legend of Zelda by itself is a way better game just because of the mechanics and the lore and just the longevity of the franchise. I mean, it's been around way longer. So yeah, I mean, and then you had Alan Wake 2 that had all this buzz going at the end when the Curse came out. Remember, that was the last game that came out from the Game of the Year. Had all this buzz going on it about the gameplay, about how different it is and stuff like that. They had that to overcome that. And then eventually Baldur's Gate, yeah, like I said, Baldur's Gate had the consistency. Even with every release, everybody talked about Spider-Man. They talked about the Tears of the Kingdom. Conversation always came back to Baldur's Gate 3. Like it always did for Game of the Year because people did not forget that game. Because it was a great game. It doesn't matter if it just came out on PC. A great game is still going to be talked about as a great game regardless of what system it comes out in.
But once essentially Starfield sucked and was not even nominated for Game of the Year, yeah, I think that the top two games that it was between was Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3. And I said as much.
No, you
But the
didn't.
funny part is, people out there who are morons like to take one moment in time and act like that moment in time is eternal, that nothing ever changes. If you take my quote from many months ago that said Baldur's Gate 3 is not going to win Game of the Year because it's PC centric, and right now with everything else going on, those other games, like I even said, Starfield is a shoe-in for Game of the Year if it's as good as people are saying it's going to be. And what
You just said right now that you just said that Baldur's Gate 3 was not going to get nominated and that because it was PC centric. You just said it right here. And now you're saying no that you and your opinions, man. First of all, you're still saying about Starfield and that the hype, if the hype is true, then it's gonna get nominated. When in this modern age of gaming has the any game lived up to its hype? It's been years. I don't think actually ever, really, to be honest with you, in the modern era of gaming, has a game totally 100% lived up to its hype. I can't think of it. Maybe GTA 5? If I want to be honest, that's the only game that like really got hyped up and delivered at the end of the day. Story wise, I'm not gonna talk about the online, but GTA 5, the story was actually pretty good, and it did get hype. It was it the greatest story ever? No, but it didn't get that much hype, but it got enough hype where everybody thought it was a great game, and it sold 100 million copies. So obviously I'm right somewhere there. So yeah, it's the only game that could come to my mind that I could think of. Oh, that lived up. I mean, well, Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom would be the second game. And that's about it. That's the only games I could think of that would live up to the hype. Every game, even the games that were nominated for Game of the Year, had some sort of fault. Spider-Man 2 still had the Mary Jane missions, which are still annoying. I don't even want to get into that. It's a whole nother argument there. So I still gotta get to the story, but from what I've seen, they're just as annoying as the first game. And other games have their flaws too. You know, it happens. Like some games are buggy. Like Jedi Survivor, that game was hyped too, but it came out with such bad performance issues. That's probably why it didn't get nominated for Game of the Year. Even though it's still at the end of the day, after all the fixes, it ended up being a damn good game. But unfortunately, because of that first month of release, where it was crappy to play, and PC players see, here you go. The PC version of Jedi Survivor was horrible because it didn't perform well. It had frame rate issues. It had skips. It was horribly running. It ran fine on the well, more or less on the PlayStation, on the Xbox. Ran better than on PC for sure. But the talk was all about the PC port. So now you're telling me that nobody talks about the PC and the PC gaming, dude. It's all over. PC is just as relevant as Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. Okay, so stop. I don't know what it is with you. Just because you're not a PC gamer, you don't consider PC gaming. It's a big market.
what happened? Well, Baldur's Gate 3 released for console. People absolutely loved it on console, and it got more mainstream attention than it had before.
No, 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 no. It always had that attention. It just continued once you released it on console. It's just the same thing. Oh, wait till you guys try it because it's such a great game. But it had consistent hype throughout the whole year. Everybody was talking about Baldur's Gate since the release, and when it released on console, it just got better. It didn't die down or didn't just get hyped up just because it released on console. It stayed consistent throughout the whole year.
Starfield came out and flopped. No one likes it. Only a very hardcore fan base of
Again, Starfield did not flop. It came out. It got cheered at first. It got a lot of attention. It got a lot of. Some of the hype even went up when it released because people were playing it. I think it was what 6 million people, concurrent players, were playing that once at one moment. So Starfield got a lot of hype after release. The problem was once we got 20, 30 hours into the game or more, it got samey, and that's when you started seeing reviews start coming back down. Because in my case, I at the beginning I probably would have said that Starfield was a 9. But then as I kept playing the game and I kept seeing the same thing over and over, same planets with the same structures, same architecture, same enemies, okay, I could see why people are starting not to like this game as much. I still think it's a great game. Good game. I mean, not overhype it. I still think it's a good game. I still think it's a 7 out of 10. But yeah, when it first came out, yeah, I was hyped too because I thought it looked great. I thought that the map, the first time you see the galaxy map, wow, that's a lot of planets that you gotta go to. But once you start playing the game, the world got smaller, and that's what I think a lot of people started seeing. So that's why the hype for Starfield really started dipping once you got 30, 40, 50, 60 hours into the game and saw how samey it was.
Bethesda and Xbox players are all over it. Everyone else is like, wow, what a disappointment. Didn't even get nominated for Game of the Year. So basically, exactly the qualifying situation that I considered to happen happened. And now Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of like I said, it was either between Baldur's Gate 3 or Zelda. I really was worried. Because you guys know me, I didn't love Zelda that much. I didn't. I thought that Zelda was a good game, but I didn't.
You're horrible at it. That's why you didn't love it, because you didn't even bother to learn the mechanics properly. You didn't want to build anything because you're even in gaming. You're a lazy fuck. You didn't want to do any building, which would have made your gaming experience much better and easier. Dude, people build fucking mech robots in that game. That's interesting to me. I'd like to actually look that up. I gotta do that myself in the game one day. People built freaking Mark IIs in that game. They were able to fly around the map and blast people because people are creative. The problem with you is you're not creative at all. You're dumb as fuck. Can't put two things together to make them work. Right? You can barely stream. I'm surprised you can stream when your internet goes down. Oh, I forgot. You bought 2 internets because you're so stupid. You don't know how to work off just one, like I do. I only have 1 internet connection. I don't know why anybody would need 2. I guess in case one goes down, you could always beg stream on the other one.
Love it, and I disagreed with Breath of the Wild winning Game of the Year many years ago, and I was like, dude, if Zelda wins, this is gonna be bullshit because there's so many better games.
Hear that he doesn't say which game should have won Game of the Year because he probably would get it wrong,
right? But that's absolutely what I said would happen. Is now it would be between those 2 games, but no one will say that. No one will look at my
because you're
like the last couple of weeks.
You're changing the history. You never mentioned Baldur's Gate 3 ever in any of your streams that I've watched. And if they did, somebody would put it up. And nobody's putting it up because you didn't mention it. You didn't mention Baldur's Gate 3. You pretty much forgot. You know who mentions it? Your community does, because they want you to play it. Day after day, they bring up Baldur's Gate 3 to you. And you either ignore it or plain on shit on the game because you don't want to play it. But now that it's Game of the Year and the chat is only getting even more eruptive about the game, now you're going to get forced into it because it's going to be one of your things that you, for the stupid marathon you're going to be running around Christmas time, you're putting it up for vote. It's going to win. It's because it's Game of the Year. It's going to win and you're going to have to play it. And you're going to you probably won't acknowledge that it's a great game because you're going to play it probably stupidly. You won't play it right. You'll die a lot and you'll hate on the game. That's just your MO. I already know it from watching all your streams. Even the games you like, you shit on. So that's just gonna be your MO. So you're gonna be forced to play the game, and you're gonna shit on the game because you're not good at it, and that's gonna be your story moving forward.
Weeks to months, and take that as fact. They just want to go back 5-6 months before any of this information was available. When I made a prediction,
that was in September, August. That was 3-4 months ago at most. This was not 6 months ago. See how you're changing history, and you're not reliable, not even for yourself. You're not a reliable person to get facts from because you lie, and you can't help it. It's the way you are.
Back then, and say that was my prediction. It's wrong. Yes, my outdated prediction before Starfield came out, before Baldur's Gate 3 hit console, was wrong. You're right. Once more data was given, I changed my prediction. But why don't you talk about that?
What data changed when Baldur's Gate 3 came out on console? It's still the same game. Nothing about that game changed when it hit console. It's still the same game. The only difference was about the Xbox. You can't play co-op multi. You can't play co-op multiplayer on the S version. I think it's because the it doesn't have enough RAM to handle it. Like local co-op, not online. I think, but that's the only difference between all the versions of Baldur's Gate 3. That the Xbox Series S, you can't play local co-op. Everything else is exactly the same as the PC version. So what data changed? What changed between the release of the PC game and the console game? You know what? Your pig-headed opinion changed because you saw how the wind was blowing, and you're like, "Oh shit, I'm wrong. I better start rolling with the bandwagon."
Because you're a bunch of fucking morons. And all you want to do is talk
And of
about
course,
Phil was
insulting
wrong, Phil was
people.
wrong. Nobody cares. You're a bunch of losers. Onward. Okay? So, here's the deal. Today we're going to talk about the Game Awards a lot. All right? What I'm going to do is briefly go through my schedule. But
All right, we don't need to go through a schedule. I think that's enough for right now. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. And yeah, this is DSP's pig-headed opinion about the game of the year and how he was 100% wrong, and even though he did everything right according to him. Baldur's Gate 3 deservedly won Game of the Year. Any of the games nominated could have been Game of the Year, to be honest with you, but it had to go to one game, and I have no problems with Baldur's Gate 3 winning Game of the Year. I can't wait to try it one day. Maybe I'll stream it one day when I have time. Let me get it first. And even if I get it, I'm wondering if I should get the console or should I just get the PC version. Interesting dilemma I got there, because I do have options. I own everything. It'd be interesting to play that on the Steam Deck. It's something I'm gonna have to ponder and think about. So thank you guys for watching. Take care. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.